Soccer Today is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Man's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SOCCERTODAY at manscaped.com.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramie, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Monday, June 13, 2022. I'm Kev Laramie and Duane Rollins going to join me in a second. Please subscribe to our YouTube page and click on that notification bell in our journey to 1,000 subscribers. We're more than halfway there, close to 600. Who will be the 600 subscribers? Thank you to the last 10 subscribers since the last show on YouTube. Thank you very much, and thank you to the patrons. We have a brand new member of the shout out tier, and we'll talk about it later today. Duane is joining me. Duane, how are you today? How was your weekend? How was your international break weekend?
It was pretty good. I spent all weekend playing with my Manscaped, so just wanted to get that out there. But other than that, no, I had a good weekend.
Well, you know what, Duane? This is not planned, but if you're going to talk about it, I'm going to make a joke, and I can say, actually, you can get 20% off and free shipping. Code SOCCER today. This weekend, we of course saw or relaxed a bit. We are going to break down today Canada-Curacao that took place last weekend. Late tonight, Canada will be playing against Honduras on the road, and we will talk about it. Yes, but to me, Duane, what's really important in this Canada match, it's maybe the tactical changes that John Herdman did and different mentality and different positioning of the players and trying some things and going a bit simpler heading into Qatar. The return of the 4-4-2. We'll break it down, but overall, what was your thought on this 4-0 win of Canada versus Curacao?
I mean, there was a lot of catharsicism there. I think it was a cathartic effort by the boys to go out and get the win. They clearly played up to their expectations. Curaçao's not a bad team, as we talked about on the Friday show. In fact, they are a quite good team that has almost qualified for the final round of the qualification. Beat Honduras in one of the games. It sets Canada up nicely to win this group if they can win in San Pedro Sula tomorrow night, which, is something that I didn't think I'd ever say in my lifetime should happen, but it should happen.
And it shouldn't be too difficult,
Yeah,
it should be okay.
Honduras is absolutely in a rebuilding phase, but enough on them for the second. We'll talk about them tomorrow likely. Curacao, we're not a match for them. If we flash back 12 months from now, we would have been talking about a team like Curacao with we got to be careful about it. The Suriname phenomena, we got to be careful with that. We don't want to be overconfident. Whereas I think now that they've proven, even with some adversity to overcome, that they just have the talent that they can go out and they can beat down teams like that pretty significantly. There wasn't much pushback from Curacao in that game, really, was there? I'm trying to remember back off the top of my head. I don't really remember many moments that I felt worried that Canada was going to allow, and they produced 4 goals. So
No, you're right. Well, before we look at the lineup, I think it's important that we look at the stats because there was very interesting stats, and we're going to get to it in right now. Let's look at the stats of this Curacao against Canada. This took place June 9th at BC Place. And you don't have the right scoreboard. I got mixed up with 2 graphics here. Veselinovic did not score for Canada, Duane. That's for sure. But we have Alphonso Davies who scored for Canada. We also had 2 goals for him, one for a penalty spot. What did you think about Alphonso Davies' return to BC Place for this victory?
To get back, it is sort of his second home, right? And certainly he had a lot of good times there, and I suspect it was a bit of a relief for him as well to play again. We had been told, and take this with a grain of salt, but we had been told that some of the younger players were a little bit frustrated that they made the choice to pull out of the first game in in Vancouver. I don't have absolute confirmation of that. I've heard that from a few people, though. So if that is the case, then certainly you know, he played good teammates by not saying anything outright against it, but still got some of his frustration out in that game and played well. It's nice to see him back. Hopefully, Bayern Munich can get him flowing in the fall so that he's going in and on all cylinders coming into the day. Look, he was a young man, and the issue was we were always told that he'd fully recover, but you still had a little bit of worry, right? Anytime there's a heart involved, you don't want to be, you are a little worried, and it's nice to see him firing on all cylinders again.
I agree. And if we look at the scoreboard from this game, 22 shots for Canada, 9 on target, quite a high percentage. We have 55% possession for Canada, 497 passes for Les Rouges, 89% pass accuracy and 5 corners. Quite the opposite, not even a shot on target for Curacao on 5 attempts. This was a very one-sided match. Canada decisive from all angles against Curacao. Let's look at the starting 11 of Canada, a bit different than anticipated. Not the 4-3-3, but we had the return of the 4-4-2 for this game. Let's look at who started, because maybe that will indicate who's playing tonight for Canada. A 4-4-2 with Milan Borjan in net, with Sam Adekugbe as your left back. Kamal Miller, your first center back, flanked by Steven Vittoria, and Alistair Johnston as your right back. The midfield for Canada versus Curacao was Alphonso Davies, Stefan Eustáquio, Atiba Hutchinson, and Tajon Buchanan in the midfield. And your two strikers in this 4-4-2. By the way, it's a 4-4-2. It was malleable. It moved a bit. And John Herdman didn't try different things going forward. But a simple aspect like a 4-4-2 that keeps a defensive mentality really strong might be good against teams like Morocco, which is very important. Morocco is the team to beat in the World Cup to get that 3 points. And then you get another point, and who knows what can happen. Jonathan David and Kyle Larin are your two strikers up top. What did you think of this starting 11 for Canada?
Look, it's an offensively based team. You play 4 at the back. That generally means you're gonna swing forward. 3 at the back's a little more defensive in most modern systems, right? So I think that probably I'd be curious to see what the lineup is tomorrow. I do think from looking at this, you'll likely see Atiba rest. They don't generally play him back-to-back games, particularly if there's travel involved. But I think having him have a runner at home and get another cap for this club, getting close to becoming the first century guy is important. And in fact, I think the numbers line up that he might become a century at the World Cup, which is kind of nice. I'm curious whether he'll play 3 at the back just out of habit against Honduras, even though they should be able to handle that team, because that is a system that they'll want to be, that I suspect they'll be playing at the World Cup certainly against Belgium and Croatia. We'll see what they are against Morocco. By the time that game rolls around, you might know a little bit more about them to have a better understanding. But it's going to be interesting. Look, one of the great losses, we want to be positive about this because it's a 4-0 win. It's going to, regardless of missing the game, they're not going to be penalized for that in terms of FIFA ranking or anything like that. They just didn't gain any points. This is they gain points in this. They'll hold their ranking system. They get a nice win. They get to feel good in front of a crowd that was there. It wasn't the best crowd you could hope for, but we understand why that was the case. But it's not the best preparation for the World Cup, and that's the negative part of this. And maybe you have to emulate what you would have been doing anyways, maybe against Iran, in the game against Honduras, and pretend that they're good again, maybe, and then see what happens. Like, they should be able to beat them regardless of the formations, and maybe you have to play your 3 at the back there. That's what I'd say.
And that does make sense, and we'll see if Canada changes back to something else tonight. That 4-4-2 I thought was quite interesting, because if we go back to look at the graphic for a second, we can see that some players are used a bit differently. Alphonso Davies was in the middle, but more as a winger, yes, but in the midfield instead of being used as a pure wing back or as a pure striker, which we've seen. We've seen Alphonso Davies used at multiple spots on this pitch over the last few years with the Canadian men's national team. When I look at Alphonso Davies going forward, and tonight is the last time we see him until September, and then the World Cup comes really close, where should Alphonso Davies play? Can he go up top? Can he be in that trident? Or should he be where he was against Curacao? Do you see him as your wing back with your 3-person backline? Where is ideally Alphonso Davies for you?
At the World Cup against Belgium, against Croatia, he is a left back. That is the position he plays at the club. It is a position he can best influence the team because he will have more touches on the ball when he is playing a team that you expect to will have more possession. That is the theory that they've utilized throughout qualifying. It's a theory that they'll utilize at Qatar. The thing about Alphonso Davies, and we've talked about this in the show before, guys, and if you haven't had the opportunity to see Canada live, you won't necessarily appreciate this in the same level as you can in the stadium, but he doesn't have a position. They play him all over the pitch. You'll be looking down the left wing going, where the hell's Alphonso? And he's center forward for some reason.
Everywhere.
10 minutes.
Where's Alphonso? Everywhere.
Yeah, outside a keeper and center half, he's basically plays everywhere else in the pitch.
It's true.
And it's to hide him, right? It's to hide him from teams that are trying to double mark him out of the game.
It's true. I totally agree. Now let's go back to Canada, Curacao. Let's go back to the actual stats that have been corrected here. Alphonso Davies, 27th minute, scored his first goal in a while for the Canadian men's national team, and then we had his second of the night at the 71st minute. Steven Vittoria scored at the 42nd minute for Canada. It was 2-0 when he scored, and we have to talk about it. It's more than 2 positive conversation on Lucas Cavallini over a week, Duane. What is happening? Only missing cats and dogs getting along, and maybe it is one of the 4 signs of the apocalypse. Cavallini playing good in Major League Soccer and for the national team. Cats and dogs loving each other. Duane, we're doomed. We're doomed! But Lucas Cavallini scored for the national team. 4-0 Canada versus Curacao. Impressive results heading into tonight, and I do appreciate that they put a marker down to forget the difficult week in all aspect of the national team.
Look, I mean, as much as it was a little nostalgic to be talking about how everything was going wrong with Canadian men's national team, I'm kind of happy to get back to this. Look, Lucas Cavallini, I did not have him on the bingo card as Lucas Cavallini getting his form back this year. I didn't. And, I'm not convinced it's going to stick yet because he's had a tough couple of years, but nonetheless, it's a positive development. I keep going back to that penalty he took in the Voyageurs Cup and how calm he was the way he took it and what he did with it. I think in my mind, I'm thinking, you never know. We might need penalties in the fall. Like that's a dream. So that's a good sign too.
Because if penalties mean it's a knockout stage match,
exactly, and they're almost going to win it. So yeah,
it means we got out of the group. Who knows? That can happen. But as Duane is going to join us as he just hung up. We'll have Duane in a second back. But to me, when I have this type of statistics, this type of performance of Canada versus Curacao, and when I have this type of hype, and now the hype is back with the national team as we look into this last game against Honduras, and we'll look at the schedule in the Nations League tonight because there's a few good games in the Nations League tonight. Duane, do you have any expectations for Canada to play well tonight? Should there be a rotation aspect? What did you think should happen for the Canadian men's national team tonight as they play in the Nations League?
Well, they should win. Look, I think that Canada should approach the Nations League with the idea that they are going to win the Nations League. Outright hold the trophy, stand at the confetti. There is no reason not to. I will say the same thing when we preview the Gold Cup next summer, which there's a lot of soccer to go around before we get to that. So let's cross that bridge when we get there. But this is a team now that in CONCACAF should not be thinking of themselves as being second class. They're not at all. I mean, they won the group. And look, they got a little flack on their social media for saying that they were the 2022 CONCACAF champions because they're not officially. That was based on the fact that they won the OCT. I think that's a little pettiness to get on them for that. But nonetheless, they haven't won anything in CONCACAF yet.
Exactly.
Outside of 2000. So they've got to. The Nations League is a perfect opportunity because honestly, Mexico and the United States aren't going to prioritize it in the same way. No. That means if we get to the semifinal stage, and again, they win tonight, then I think you could start to plan that they're going to be playing in the CONCACAF finals, which is, if you don't know, is a Final Four format. Then you're looking at 2 wins, one against probably a team that's weaker than you. You might get a Costa Rica in there, which I do believe, outside the result that happened at the end of the OC, it is a team that's still weaker than us. And even the US, they beat the US twice. Or they were undefeated against US and Mexico in qualifying. There's no reason they can't win this.
Here are the latest games in the Nations League that will take place tonight, tomorrow, and one took place yesterday. Yesterday, Martinique and Panama was 0-0 in Group B. This was the last match of the window in the Concacaf Nations League for Group B. Group A, Jamaica versus Mexico. That will take place tomorrow at 8 p.m. in Kingston, Jamaica. Honduras versus Canada. That is tonight, 10 p.m. And that is live from San Pedro Sula, a place that did lose its aura of invincibility over the last few months. And tomorrow at 10 p.m., El Salvador versus the United States in one of the last match of the international window. Yes, Canada's a favorite tonight against Honduras. Is Mexico clearly the favorite, and is the USA also? Are both those teams going to prioritize the matches tomorrow? Is it the time to make some last minute adjustment test, maybe to go into Qatar with answers into what your young players can do? How would you approach a game on the Nations League in a June window with the World Cup 4 months away?
Well, it is a competition onto its own, but at the same time, we have to be realistic, particularly in the CONCACAF version of this. The European version of the Nations League might be a little bit different because you have teams that are in the World Cup that might think that they prioritize a little bit more than others, the Nations League, I'm saying. But in CONCACAF, look, the top 3-4 teams should win their groups. I mean, they should. There is a gap. There's no doubt that there's a gap. We saw it in the OC. Outside of Panama, maybe holding on for a while, the top 4 was a pretty clear divide, I think, and all of those 4 teams should win their group, and they should be using this as particularly Costa Rica, which they don't play again the game because they have a far more important game to play. They have to set themselves up that way, and they did play pretty well. I watched that game earlier. You can watch all these games in one soccer, by the way, if you don't know. Look, the U.S. and Mexico, this is all about finding those 20 to 24 slots on their roster and maybe working some kinks out here and there.
Maybe 26.
Won this competition. Yeah,
maybe 26, right? Because we were hearing that there may be 26 players per team at the World Cup in November to change the amount of available players, to add a couple so that maybe the rotation's a bit easier. We'll talk about that really more in details when that is made official. Now it's time to talk about our sponsor, Manscaped. It is that time of the day where, yes, I love to use Manscaped's product, and full disclosure, today is a bit of a vacation day after this show for me. I'm going to the spa, and going to the spa makes it that I actually use Manscaped. Yes, to get myself ready to go to the spa. If it's dark where you do your grooming for your body, there is a light on the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. It is a very useful tool to groom your body to your liking. The weed whacker for your ears and for your nose, very useful, especially if you're gonna go at a spa where your partner might be looking at you, other people might be looking at you. Maybe you need to make sure you get the job done with the proper tools. Manscaped is there for that. Anti-chafing boxers come with the Lawnmower 4.0 and the Performance Package. And the Performance Package, Duane, with the amazing boxers here. I play soccer from time to time, and I've tried those boxers to play soccer. Amazing boxers, anti-chafing. And to help with the anti-chafing, also, you can add the ball deodorant, soccer ball deodorant, of course. And it really helps a lot for a lot of things. And the toner to help make sure you're refreshed every single time. I just see Duane laugh on the other camera. That helps a lot, Duane. Thank you very much. All right. You also get this perfect travel bag with the purchase of the perfect package and the performance package. On that note, manscaped.com, code soccer today. Get 20% off, free shipping. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and use the perfect tools for the job with Manscaped. We'll be right back after this short break.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Kev, Larame, Duane will be right back in a second. It's time to talk about wonderful human beings, our patrons. Thank you to the patrons right here. You can support us financially by going to the patreon.com website, patreon.com/2solitudes. $2, $5, and $10 US a month. That's $3.57 and $13 Canadian, and you get the 2 Solitude Soccer podcasts with the $2 tier. With the $5 tier, you get your name on the screen. Like right now, we have a brand new addition. My man, Blue Collar Dan, joins us. And if you want to be like Dan, join the shout out tier, and we'll get soon enough somebody in the super shout out tier. The super shout out tier comprises of me mentioning your name in every single show and saying how great of a human being you are. And you can find that and more right here on patreon.com/2solitudes, and there you can find easily all the different ways that you can support us and the codes and the RSS feeds to access the 2 Solitude Soccer podcast. Big news earlier today in LAFC in Los Angeles. A brand new designated player joins Los Angeles FC. Giorgio Chiellini, who's not going to play at the World Cup in November, decided to move earlier, and he's now joining LAFC. Let's have a look at Chiellini's numbers and what is going to happen over the next few days. Here are Chiellini's. So Chiellini with LAFC until 2023, Duane. Italian defender signed a 1.5-year contract. It is with targeted allocation money. He does not take the last DP spot that LAFC have open. When they transferred officially Diego Rossi last month, that liberated that third designated player spot. It is still not being used, but Giorgio Chiellini is now a member of LAFC.
Yeah, look, you're going to get the usual comments about how this is an older player coming over, retirement league, all that sort of stuff. And I will make the usual joke back that it may be an older player, but it's an older Italian player. And jokes aside, they do tend to have a little bit more staying power. Must be the diet. Who knows? All that olive oil and tomatoes.
The wine, maybe. I guess it's like a fine wine. True, right?
Yeah.
17 seasons with Juve, 20 seasons his entire career, 624 games, 32 goals, 20 assists. But to me, it's a team points per match that is impressive. This is only from 2014 to today, so it might be a bit skewed by the last decade, which he was with Juve and they won basically almost a Scudetto every year. But 2.26 points per match when he's on the field for his team over the last decade.
Yeah, well, I mean, his team over the last decade is pretty good too. So I mean, that's a stat that I know you like, but I think it's more effective in Major League Soccer sometimes than when you're talking about leagues that have dominant teams. So certainly you may have slipped in the last couple of years. This is one of my all-time favorite players. I'll say that, put my bias out there. Chiellini is, he's been a superstar as long as I've been covering this game, and he's a guy that I really enjoy watching playing because I can appreciate a good defensive effort like everyone. He'd be disappointed he's not going to a World Cup. That allows him to come early. That's probably why they've structured this deal in such a way to allow him to come as a TAM player. Just as a quick F up, I know there are quick little bit of information. I do know that Chiellini had been talking to MLS for a while, and in fact, I was told that he had actually spoken to TFC. So Toronto fans can be frustrated that they just lost another defender, perhaps, and he certainly would have been one that would have been very popular about 2 blocks north of where I am right now. If you don't know, that's Little Italy. What's the fake Little Italy? The real Little Italy is even further north, but at any rate, the fake Little Italy is where you go to club and buy half-ass pizza. But anyway,
the real Little Italy is where the real Italians go. Right? That's where you need to go to get your pasta and other great stuff. Good stuff.
St. Clair West is where your true Little Italy is. Look. I think it's a good move for LAFC, a team that's looking to win a championship this year. That's absolutely, I think, maybe the favorites to win the MLS Cup at this particular moment, along with, well, we'll talk about New York in a minute. Maybe New York with the coaching change, that might change it up. So I've got to put LA as, not just because I picked them in the preseason, I've got to pick them as my favorite right now to win MLS Cup based on what it is. And this is an ad. And it's a, if you want to go back to the TFC rumor that I just said, it's a subtract there too. This is a team here where I am that he's had, and this is the player that they had in their minds that they didn't get. So there you go.
You mentioned LAFC. They are top of the standings in the Western Conference and in the Supporter Shield race right now. 29 points, top of the West. And if we look at the recent results in Major League Soccer over the last few days, a couple games took place during the international break. We can look at the results right now. Charlotte, big victory on Saturday versus the Red Bulls. Nashville, San Jose, 0-0. That is 90 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. Kansas City, red card. New England winning on the road at Kansas City. Another loss for Kansas City. How long will Peter Vermees last? That is the question. Right now, Spoon, yes, the wooden spoon contenders and favorites at this point, the Kansas City, Sporting of Kansas City, this team is now becoming worse than a shadow of itself. When I look at this team and the lack of direction, I'm wondering when will they turn around. And let's not forget also tomorrow, a Cascadia match, Seattle versus Vancouver. Let's not forget, if you are a Montreal fan, Seattle will be one of your next opponents. It will be at the end of the month on June 29th, late in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing I say every time I talk about games that happen during international break is, why are we talking about games that are happening during international break, MLS? Let's get this figured out. You've offered your teams the opportunity to choose whether they play. That's a good thing. These teams that are playing, why do you choose it? This isn't a COVID year anymore. We don't necessarily need to squeeze these things in. But nonetheless, look, in terms of the results, as you say, Nashville, San Jose, I'm going to be blunt with you guys. I didn't watch that one. 0-0. Don't think I missed much. I think Charlotte deserves some credit for getting a win there after a little bit of concerns that they've been having over the past little while with the coaching changes. And as you say, SKC continues to struggle. And I think maybe what you're hearing, that sound in flyover country, is the bubble going on that whole project. Yeah. They need to figure something out.
Oh, yeah, they definitely do need to figure out. Let's also look at a few results in the Canadian Premier League. We have some great games that took place over the last few days, and we can have a look right now. Cavalry, another victory on Saturday versus the Wanderers, 1-0. Forge, another win, this time against Pacific, a rematch of the 2021 Canadian Premier League final. Big win by Forge, 3-0. Two games will take place tomorrow on Tuesday. Atletico Ottawa versus York United and FC Edmonton versus HFX Wanderers. Will the Eddies get their first victory of the season? It's becoming a very, how should I say this? It's embarrassing at this point. Edmonton, looking at you to get a W. I know you're trying hard. It's not a lack of try. But at this point, you have to get the job done. You got to get the dub. And you got to score a goal. And you got to get a clean sheet. Will tomorrow night be the night of Edmonton, Duane?
Look, I hope so. I do. No offense to anyone they're playing. I'm going to be cheering for the Eddies to get a win because I want that team to be successful. I want that team to survive. Yeah. Is what it comes down to. I was looking at the attendances last week, and you know what? There's a 4% increase if you compare sort of apples to apples. It's kind of hard to compare apples to apples because of the last couple of years. But if you look at last year, 9 weeks into the season in which you could have fans, they're about 4% up league wide. You have some nice attendance figures in Halifax. They're pushing 6,000. The weather hasn't been great here in Southern Ontario, so that's hurt kind of York and Forge. But Forge is still in that 3,000 range. So they're doing okay. I think as they get moving.
Let's be honest, though. And we haven't had that conversation before. And we're not necessarily going to go deep in there, too. We like Forge as a club. We think sporting-wise, they're really set up for success and the team and everything. I'm kind of disappointed when only 3,000 fans show up because they've had maybe the most amount of success since this team exists. You would think that the fan base would have grown a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, look, the weather's been crap. I've been going to a lot of Forge games this year, and it hasn't been great. And the weather does matter for CanPL, and the weather in certain circumstances. It is a league that doesn't have enough history yet to basically have fans that are just going to automatically go every week. And they were calling for thunderstorms on Sunday, and it didn't end up happening. It turned out to be a beautiful day, so not getting there was great. Although, it turned out to be a very good, very exciting day for Forge fans. It was a good result for them, and it shows that they're back on track. I suspect those numbers will go up. Look, the point I'm making with attendance is that it's actually not a negative story, really. The fact that they've maintained where they are from 2019 is a positive, but the one exception to that is Edmonton, and we understand what's going on there, but to have an average attendance under 1,000 is tough. It's tough to justify anything, and I don't know what the answer there is other than, people are talking about relocation already behind the scenes. Like, I'm not necessarily people at the head office, but people that are close to that situation are wondering out loud whether that team can survive, and we just want them to survive. No one wants a team to go away. And I am adamant against the team moving anywhere. So if they need to shut it down for a year to refocus, to rebrand, I'd rather that than move it.
Chivas Canada. Welcome to
Yeah,
Chivas
sure.
Canada. FC Edmonton gone for a year. And then we'll get FC Edmonton FC. No? Just like LAFC. All right. Let's talk about Ronny Deila before we say goodbye. We don't have any graphics or stats yet. We'll have some tomorrow. But according to the latest result, it is sounding like he's on his way out of New York. It's sounding like he's finding his way to go into the night into Belgium. The Standard de Liège comes calling. Ronny Deila, European as a person and also loves European game, former Celtic manager who decided to come to MLS to maybe better his reputation. It took a little dip when he went to Celtic, to be quite honest. And with MLS Cup last year and the beginning of the season this year, well, it's doing pretty well, and his reputation seems to have recovered. If we look at the standings in the East, while New York City FC is top, can they survive a mid-season coaching change? All signs are pointing to Ronny Deila leaving now to go to Europe in Belgium to manage Standard de Liège. And right now, it's not like there is anybody ready to step up in New York City, or ready to take the job in the actual Manchester City Football Group. There's no manager that is not being used. What do you think of this? And do you think it's dangerous to do that again? We've seen the Red Bulls do it and turn out to be pretty good. We've seen other teams do it. But to lose your manager again to a European team mid-season in New York, we've seen it happen with the Red Bulls a couple years ago. Will this derail New York City's season?
Yeah, a couple things. One, in CFG, I trust kind of at this point. I mean, I think they've earned that in terms of their ability to run those programs. You look at all of them, starting from the very top, obviously, to going down to these teams that are outside the top of their system, all are successful. So you would anticipate that they will do the right kind of coaching search and will figure this out. And then it'd be an attractive job to anyone that's looking to break in, because whether this is true or not, you will be looking at being part of CFG and looking at part of that network and looking at maybe the opportunity to have the era Pep Guardiola maybe at some times. That might be something that would be appealing to most team managers. So I'm sure that they will get a good quality of application. You mentioned the Red Bulls, and they lost Jesse Marsh, of course, in the middle of the season where they were doing very well, and they ended up winning the Supporters' Shield.
With
Chris Armas, man. So,
and right now we know that they probably won the Supporters' Shield despite of Chris Armas. So it's pretty good, because we've seen what Chris Armas can do in this league now.
Yeah. Look, as a final thought on this,
could Chris Armas get the job? Because he won't have a job soon. He doesn't have a job right now. He ain't coming back as assistant at Manchester United. Will Chris Armas come back to New York and take charge of NYCFC? Oh, I would laugh. So.
I don't think so. I'll tell you what, Deliche, when he came over, he promised that if they won MLS Cup, he would do push-ups in his boxers.
He did.
Yeah, I will do push-ups in my Manscaped boxers, mostly because I've always just wanted to say I was an underwear model.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that happens, I will do that. And if it doesn't happen, I promise I won't. Good. You can cheer for either way. Okay.
On that note, we'll come back tomorrow with more on Ronny Deila's departure. Probable departure at this point. By tomorrow, it should be confirmed that he is now going to be the Standard de Liège's new manager in Belgium. Until then, if you like what Duane and I do and you like our national team coverage, you can go to the Two Solitudes podcast. You can find it on Patreon at patreon.com/2solitudes. You can find a tier that fits your need, and you can support us, and you can become part of the shout-out tier, and of course, of the super shout-out tier. You can find the podcast everywhere you find your favorite podcast. That's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, Google Podcasts actually now, and Spreaker. Everywhere else we have our show available too. And if you're looking for some help with your content creation, graphics, overlays, podcast consultancy. I've been in the podcast industry for over a decade now. You have a podcast, you want me to look at it to maybe give you some ideas and help with your branding, you can go to spinmediadigitalsolutions.com and find ways to contact myself or my team, and we will come back and give you all that you need to know. Before we say goodbye, once again, manscaped.com with the code SOCCER today. You get 20% off and free shipping worldwide. That is 20% off and free shipping worldwide with the code SOCCER today at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always have the right tools for the job with Manscaped. We'll be back very shortly with a brand new edition of the World of Football with a soccer perspective. But as always, until then, for Duane Rollins, I'm Kev Laramie, and we wish you a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcasts.